All right, so welcome back to another, and this will be somewhere between full length and short episode of The Horror with Nate and Mike.
Depending on your definitions of short and full length.
Yeah, pretty much. But we usually do top fives, as you guys well know. This time, we just could not do top five. I probably could have, truthfully, because fuck this genre. I'm joking, but you say you could not do.
I couldn't possibly do a top five zombie movies. There are too many great ones.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
All right. But you wouldn't let me have my fucking top 10 for like haunted houses,
you do it anyway,
killer animals. I know, I do it anyway.
I couldn't come up with like 10 favorite killer animal movies.
Yeah, I just call them honorable mentions, but they're really 15, 20 through 10.
Right.
But, so top 10 zombie flicks. You want to kick us off with this, Nate?
Yeah. When we talk zombies, we're basically talking Romero zombies and forward. Previous to this, there were zombie movies.
Right,
Most of them
no
were
Haitian.
Right.
Haitian
you know,
zombies.
None of that mess. And really, I haven't seen very many of them, and most of them are like really incredibly racist because they involve voodoo and witchcraft, and they were made in the 40s and 50s when, well, you know, a lot of the cultural
like
stuff from back then
and stuff,
doesn't really translate. And
sure,
I'm not really, I'm not a bedwetting liberal or anything, but some of that stuff. So, not to mention, none of them are really scary.
Right.
Night of the Living Dead, George Romero really kicked off what we think of as zombie movies, and they've gone through several permutations over the years. Everybody wants to put their own spin on zombies, and at this point, zombie has actually sort of become like a catch-all, like what Nazis used to be.
I don't...
Yeah, but in essence, zombies, like for anybody that's ever seen Walking Dead or anything, reanimated corpses that come back to life to 9 times out of 10 feast on the living.
Right.
And that's it. It's super generic. So the thing about a zombie movie is zombies have to be the monster, the background detail. They can't really be the focus of it.
Right.
You have to have characters, you have to have drama, you have to have humor, storyline. You have to have something to make it interesting because the zombies cannot carry an entire film by themselves.
That's what I think tends to make the better zombie movies are the ones that really focus on telling a good story, and zombies are almost incidental.
So, that said, everybody knows what zombies are, so fuck all this intro. You're number 10. Why don't you start off the list?
All right. So number 10, and this one is slightly a cheat, as I always do.
I'm starting with slightly a cheat myself. So
Thriller.
God damn it! My number 10 is Thriller.
Nice.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah,
because it had to. Those are some of my favorite. That's what zombie movies should be.
It's one of the all-time best werewolf transformations you're ever going to see, and some of the most memorable zombies you're ever going to see.
Absolutely.
It's the greatest music video ever made.
Absolutely.
In my estimation, it is just as good now as it was when it was new.
Absolutely, it is.
And it's 20 minutes long, so you can consider it a short film.
That's why I was like, fuck it. I'm going to put this on here. Also John Landis, which you got to love John Landis. It is funny that we both try to be smartasses, and that's what we get.
Honestly, I really wasn't coming at it from a smart,
trying to be a smartass by any means.
I was like, I really can't leave this off.
Well,
I'll just keep calling it an honorable. No, this deserves to be on the list.
Right, it does.
And I was like, well, if somebody had never seen any zombie movies before,
oh god, can you imagine that? Then, would be so awesome.
Then this would be one of the first things I'd show.
Have you showed your girls then?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
God, I love that. And they had Vincent Price. It's what I always want horror movies to be. And that's why I tend to like little kid horror movies a lot, because they're not afraid to go that over the top. And very rarely do you see legitimate R-rated horror movies do graveyards with fog.
Right.
Old creaky houses with, we don't see this kind of stuff. And yeah, these vampires I remember zombies. Maybe it was because I was a little kid, but like when he turns into, like, these are actually kind of freaky looking. Cause
absolutely.
Eyes.
Absolutely.
Wide eyes is a thing with me. So they have the wide eyes. Their looks are just so fucking good.
Yeah, well, I mean, wasn't it Rick Baker did the special effects for it?
God, I don't know, but that would make sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
I
an
should have
FX
researched
god.
that, or I should know that. But yeah, Thriller is so fucking awesome, and it really is one of my favorite interpretations of zombies ever. Bring on the full movie. So yeah, that was your 10 too.
Yep. So
nice.
You're up with number 9.
I like that. Number 9 is something that you've been hawking a lot. That I was very take it or leave it, and so I rewatched it. I think this week, and so it might not be fair to put it on the top 10, being that I just watched it. But being that I have seen it before, I've seen its remake before, it seems fair because I don't like to judge a movie by watching it once and being like, "Oh, it was great," because that could wear off.
Right.
But I like when I'm like, that was all right, and then the second time I'm like, that was great. Then I know usually that's a good indicator that it's a good movie. And so number 9 is Wreck.
Nice.
And Wreck almost also got left off because in my honorable mentions or whatever, I have a few that I cut out because I consider them more a subgenre that I prefer, which is Evil Dead.
Yeah.
As opposed to zombies. Which I also think tends to work better because they tend to keep their personalities and stuff. This one, they don't really keep their personalities or anything, or really any humanity. They become more 28 Days Later style, and technically they're more Evil Dead by the end. But watching this movie, I liked it a whole lot. Like it has so much ingenuity. It's like really pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
The designs are great, and like it really sinks in after because it's so intense while you're watching it, and then once you figure out what it is, and then it sinks in, like scary sinks in later. And I still haven't seen Record 2. I can't find it fucking anywhere with like good enough subtitles or anything.
Sure.
So I still have yet to see Rec 2, but yes, Rec number 9, zombie movies.
That's a great pick. My number 9, the seminal Peter Jackson classic before he sold out and started making Hobbit movies, Dead Alive. And I'm laughing as I say that because
right, Lord of the Rings is classic. I get what you mean.
Yeah. I like Fellowship of the Ring. The other 9 I could give or take.
Okay, all right.
But none of those movies have 1 ounce of the playfulness, the oh my god, I'm making my dream movie. And right. I know that Lord of the Rings was his dream movie, but Dead Alive feels
Lord of the Rings, actually, that's funny little side backstory, I'll be really quick, is he made Lord of the Rings because they had, from the Frighteners, new technology. And he was like, well, what do I use this technology for now? We should make a fantasy like Lord of the Rings. Well, let's write this story, but let's make it more Lord of the Rings. And then they were like, wait, does anybody actually own Lord of the Rings? And they were like, no. And they're like, well, let's just make fucking Lord of the Rings. And so he stumbled into that and then fell in love with it, but it was not a passion project.
All right. Well, Dead Alive is the passion project.
Right.
It's an explosion of energy and guts and gore and brains, and it's a masterpiece of gore. I consider it to be the bloodiest movie that I've ever seen.
Right.
And it's not sadistic torture and that kind of blood.
Right,
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have just bought a tanker truck
Dude,
filled
seriously.
with fake blood. It is.
It
is. It's ridiculous. And I say all these things. If you haven't seen the movie, you'll go, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And you don't think that I'm being for real, and you'll watch the movie, and then like halfway through the movie, you'll go like, "Oh, sick! This is what he's talking about." No, I'm not. You know,
right.
From the halfway point on, it gets like exponentially more disgusting. Like every 10 minutes, it's a thing of intensely horrific beauty.
Right.
And it's a hell of a lot of fun.
True.
So for gore, for laughs, and for historical value, Dead Alive, my number 9.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so my number 8 is, I think this is getting a little bit more well known, Cemetery Man. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen Cemetery Man.
Delamore or whatever.
Right.
To be all faggy about it. I'm joking. Yeah, this was actually one of the first ones I ever saw, and it was not funny at all to me. I thought it was really like gross and freaky, and like just it completely did not do anything for me. I thought it was pretty cool in a lot of parts. It was something I watched later, and the zombies are really have a lot of they're like thriller zombies. Like they feel rotten and gross, and it's really funny. Like how I didn't realize it was funny. It is legitimately a comedy.
Well, I love the premise where he has to catch the zombies as they break out of the ground, and
Yeah, the premise is that Rupert Evans, the gay best friend from My Best Friend's Wedding, is what I think he's best known for. Maybe something else, but he works as the groundskeeper at a cemetery, and it's very like Tim Burton cemetery. Like everything's basically on sound stages, very interesting sets and everything. And he has to every night stay up to kill the zombies that rise and then bury them again. So his job is to keep the zombies confined to his cemetery. And then things happen, and then other things happen, and it starts to go a little crazier, and then it starts just going art house crazy. And I kind of don't like the ending. It goes a little too art house for me. Maybe I'll like it more the third time that I see it. But for zombie, freaky, beautiful movie, Cemetery Man is a must-see.
Totally. That is one that needs to go on my revisit list, because it's been several years, and I remember it being like campy and fun, but I don't remember being that impressed by it. But I do really like the idea, and I remember, even though I don't remember the movie that well, I still remember some very striking visuals.
Very striking.
That one, I believe, is available streaming anyway, so I can just check that one out next time I need something to watch.
Okay, cool.
My number 8, and we'll just breeze through this because we just talked about it, is Wreck. The first Wreck.
Nice.
Keeps it really simple, but does it perfectly. In trapping them in the apartment building gives it this great sense of claustrophobia, but it never feels too gimmicky. Like, oh, these are zombies trapped in a building.
Right.
It's like Die Hard with zombies. No, not at all. They use that isolation very well, and
that was the other thing I really liked is you get the isolation that you need for something to be scary, but it's isolation from quarantine.
Right, it's so enforced still isolation
coming in, and you're surrounded by people that you can hear and won't let you out.
Yeah,
but inside that building, it's dark corridors and empty and scary. So it got the best of both worlds on that.
Yeah, and it does provide a pretty unique spin on zombies, on what causes them, that they get into a lot more later on in the series. So yeah, Wreck, my number 8.
Very good choice. Thank you for recommending. That was a rewatch for me, based on your recommendation, and I really liked it. Number 8, number 7.
You're on number 7.
I need to mark these better. I do that every time. Number 7 is Fred Decker's Night of the Creeps.
Oh, I didn't include that one
because they're a part of the movie.
Right. I wasn't sure. It was more I didn't include it on terms of a technicality. In terms of quality, it totally deserves to go on almost any top 10 list you could name.
Right, exactly. But yeah, Night of the Creeps, I know what he's talking about is that Night of the Creeps technically is about, like Slither. Slither ripped it off, basically, but it's so much fun, I'm not talking about about Slither. And so alien slugs come down, get into people's heads, kill them, but then kind of like drive them around, basically, until they impregnate their brain, which then explodes with other slugs.
Which is just amazing to see.
Yeah. There are dead bodies walking around, and specifically there's a part where an old dead body that has a very dark, very classic horror story like Edgar Allan Poe, but with EC Comics mixed in backstory, this one particular zombie. And so I could see, but every zombie movie has to come up with a reason why.
Sure, well,
zombies.
and the scene with the bus crash is awesome.
And there's like zombie dogs.
Yeah.
And flamethrowers. Because it takes place on a college campus during their equivalent to prom. It's some kind of like Greek dance between fraternities and sororities. So everybody's dressed up, looks like prom, tuxedos. It's tuxedos, evening dresses, but the main characters are carrying shotguns and flamethrowers. And then Tom Atkins is
classic. Who is this almost ridiculously hard-boiled, tough-talking detective.
Right. He says
in the midst
of
of
stupidest shit is so funny.
It's ridiculous, yeah. But highly, highly entertaining.
Yes.
I don't say this very often, but they really don't make movies like that anymore. So that was your number 7, Night of the Creeps.
Yep.
My number 7 is actually Rec 2.
Oh, nice. I was about to say, when you did it, you didn't put them both at the same time.
No, I, having recently rewatched the entire series, gonna break them up and not do the...
Now it just feels like you're messing with me. It's like, after watching the whole
Slip
series,
one
the one you haven't seen is the best one. Sorry, Mike.
I made the comparison before with Rec and Rec 2 being like Alien and Aliens,
right.
Where the second one cranks up the intensity, throws a lot more at you, and also digs a lot deeper into that great ending from the first movie, which I can't spoil. But
right,
let's suffice to say that it does involve a scientist who has been, who works for the Roman Catholic Church to...
Don't say too much, because I don't even know. That's what I like about the ending, is it gave you just enough to intrigue, but then you're like, what the fuck? And then it's over.
Yes, and it runs with that. Not by giving too much away, however. Thankfully, at no point do you have like a monologuing villain explaining everything, but they do get a lot deeper into it. So, technically speaking, they really crank up the energy and introduce a lot more visual trickery that really worked for me. I'm not a big gimmick whore,
right?
But it's filmed great. More zombies, more blood, a great story, and it all builds to a phenomenal third act. Like
I can't wait. Damn it.
There's some, like, one of my all-time like favorite scary scenes comes at the end of Rec 2.
Do you own it? Can I borrow it?
Let me dig through my collection.
Fuck, man. Damn. Because that's it. I really thought that the first one, another thing to say about the first one is that I thought it had a really good sense of energy.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Being contained and everything. I almost would say that the camera moves too much, but it really manages. They're going up the stairs, down the stairs, this place, that place, but it also stops to be eerie and then speed back. So I thought it had great pacing in that way too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that was my number 7, Rec 2, and now I'm done talking about Rec movies for the day. I promise.
Okay. Right. Sure. We'll see about that. So number 6 for me is Shaun of the Dead. Now, Shaun of the Dead was one that I immediately was like, I'm not going to put that on there. Like, that's just, it's too easy. Everybody knows about it. You don't need to be telling people about it. And then, starting to think about it, I'm like, no, Shaun of the Dead really is that good.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is so funny, and I think it is a really good zombie movie, too. Maybe the zombies' designs aren't anything to, write home about. I think the fact that they have these weird blue eyes is basically the only thing they add to that. So for the most part, the zombies aren't... But the zombie tropes that they do, I almost think... Because they follow all the tropes that I hate. Like the zombie movie structure that, as far as I can tell, was created by Dawn of the Dead. Which is that people get isolated. One of them within the group is bad. and it's all about having to fight the monsters within the building.
Yeah, always.
Blah, blah, and then somebody they love gets bit, and like I said, and then the character becomes better for having to kill the person. All that stuff. It does it, but it's still, you care about the character so much that by the third act, when it starts doing that, it is a parody, but it almost, depending on your mood while watching it, can be taken at face value. Like, there are jokes, but Simon Pegg really goes for it.
Yeah, I'm always sort of unclear on the definition between parody and satire, because it's definitely it's a horror comedy, but it's not mocking zombies. You can tell every inch of it. It loves zombies and it loves zombie movies. It loves fun of the terrible tropes that it's making fun of. It's I don't know. It's affectionate.
Yeah, and that's actually something we could talk about as far as horror comedies go, which what I think makes the best horror comedies, and this movie does it too. Somebody like Frank Mancuso was talking to Tom McLaughlin about Friday the 13th Part 6, and he was like, well, what I want to do is make it funny. Can I make it funny? He was like, yeah, just don't make fun of Jason. And
Fair
I was
enough.
like, there you go.
Yeah.
And that's what Wes Craven does with Scream. What this does with zombies is Wes Craven's whole balancing act, and I think American Werewolf does it too, is like, you can make fun of everything, but death is not funny, and the monster is not funny.
Yeah, it makes it harder for the audience to take the villain seriously if you're mocking
and
the
then
villain.
There's no tension, but you can laugh as long as the villains are a genuine force to be reckoned with. Like Scream, they had to cut some stuff out because he fell down the stairs sometimes too many. But like Jason, it's not like Jason like trips. Or, like walk, walk, walk. Something stupid like that. The closest you get is when the guy shoots him with the red piece of paint and he just like looks down.
Right. He's trying to figure out if he got shot or not.
Yeah, little things. But for the most part, that's just Jason barreling through a comedy. He doesn't know he's in a comedy. And these are zombies going through a British romantic comedy that they have disregard, that they're breaking up the plot of a romantic comedy. So it's a really good British romantic comedy, really fucking funny, great performances all around that made these people legitimate stars overnight. And it really is a very good movie all around. Shaun of the Dead, number 6.
Good pick. My number 6, George A. Romero's Day of the Dead.
Oh, and we start getting into the Romeros. Here we go.
Yeah, this definitely the I consider Romero's last stab at greatness in terms of zombie movies.
Right.
Some years later, he tried again with Land of the Dead, which I thought was moderately successful.
Right.
After that, he's all been downhill. Day of the Dead, though, it's an FX person's dream, first of all.
True.
Very, very rarely will a movie get extra point. I love gore. I love good special effects.
Oh, I see where you're going, yeah.
But I'm a story guy. I'm a character guy. Day of the Dead doesn't give me any characters that I like.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't. And the story is okay. The story is serviceable.
It has some interesting islands, but they just don't seem to know to focus on those. And I'm not talking about the whole script issue, which some people will say, oh, well, he had all these big ideas, but in the original script is really good. But still, that doesn't change the fact that you could have spent more time with the Doctor and Bubs and all that more interesting stuff other than people arguing, which is all they do is yell at each other.
Yeah, and that is... That's a big weakness in any movie, including this.
That's what kept it off my top 10.
But it's got some of my all-time favorite zombie makeups.
Right.
And, the last 30 minutes. The entire movie is just incredible effects. Incredible.
Sure. Yeah. And
it really goes for absolute broke and is... You know what? That's something that I like in a zombie movie.
Sure. I like it in any movie. Go for broke. Fuck it, man.
I just like guts and gore, zombies, 20 zombies grabbing a guy and ripping him all directions and just killing people in horrible, disgusting ways and feasting on their flesh.
Right.
You can't build an entire movie around that. I get it. But I love...
If any movie
you gotta have it in there.
It could have been this movie.
Yeah.
This is still, in my eyes, the mecca of... practical effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that reason, and also some carryover love from the previous 2 Dead movies,
Sure.
this is my number 6 pick.
Yeah, and just talking about it, I kind of wish that it would have made my list. It probably should have over maybe Record or Cemetery Man or something. But I left it off because everything I always think of is the characters. I don't like the characters in the story. But, and this sounds horrible to do, but it's still being respectful to the movie, is if I watch it, I only want to watch certain parts. Yeah. I don't need to see the whole movie anymore.
No.
And that's one of the few movies I would bother. Because I don't like just watching parts for movies. That's not fair. But Day of the Dead is, because the zombies have been out so long, they're like getting Thriller and Cemetery Man more what I like, where they're gross. Like, they don't look like people anymore. It's not a lame excuse for carnage where you take your friends and put contact lenses in them and
right, or like, oh, I've got blood on my forehead.
Yeah, and that's why zombies are so prevalent in low budget cinema, because they're so easy to make. It's just get a whole bunch of friends together. Blah. This does not cheapen itself out like that. Every one of them has personality. Every one of them has makeup. They're all disgusting when the gore happens. Like their guts are gross when they fall out, and like black and nasty. And it's just the best pulled off special effects. It has something that I also really respect, that it is dark. Like, the movie is nihilistic. It's dark. It does not really. The Professor and Bubs are kind of a shining light, but it is mean. And it is nasty, and it doesn't try and be an enjoyable movie.
No, Dawn of the Dead, its predecessor, is pretty dark, but it has a lot of flashes of humor and personality in it.
Right.
And Day of the Dead, I ain't got time for that. You know, he's getting too old for personality. Yeah. I just want brains.
And so I respect that. And 2, this movie pulls off unsuccessfully, but the closest you could to, either you have a lot of gore, which becomes funny, and it doesn't work in trying to be down and dirty. You can't have massive amounts of gore. Right. This is the closest movie that shows you can have ridiculous amounts of gore,
and it's not slapstick like Dead Alive was.
It isn't it's slapstick, basically, where it's just excess is funny. It becomes Monty Python. This doesn't. Like, they still always rein it in. That no matter how graphic it gets, like peeling the guy's eyeball backward, it is still, it's like Lucio Fulci movies, where it's like gory as you could never imagine, but it still keeps the tone of not being funny. And so I really like it. Bubs is one of the greatest zombies of all time. Love his arc, everything. Bubs is the most likable character in this movie.
Yeah, inexplicably.
And yeah, so Day of the Dead probably should have made my top 10. Very good choice.
Those are our picks 10 through 6. Now, how are we doing so far? You can send us feedback through social media, Twitter or Facebook. Frightflix with an CKS, or Nateflix at Nateflix, and that is with an X. And you can also find our written words at frightflix.weebly.com.
Yes, we're going to start putting up more of those, too. So watch out for those.